Hey everybody, Dusty here at Mojave World Headquarters, and we're here with our very own David Royer, Chief Engineer, Designer, Technical Grammy winner, the man, the myth, the legend. And we're going to talk about our new product, the MAD, which is our first handheld dynamic. And we want to get David's thoughts on what went into the design of this mic. But first, a little bit of history about this mic. David, I've been bugging you for years to design a dynamic microphone, and you're not really a huge fan of the genre. So it's been a long process. Every year, our friend George Peterson, who is editor of Front of House magazine and used to be editor of Mix magazine, comes up to our booth and gives me a lecture on why we need a dynamic microphone. And finally, I said, George, hold that thought. And I would come and get David, drag him over. Okay, George, go. So finally we established that, yes, we need a dynamic microphone. We're a microphone company. And that led us to the development of this. But I want to hear your thoughts about dynamics in general, and then why this one now and why it finally met your standards.
Well, the short answer to that is that with early dynamic microphones, they tended to have quite thick, heavy diaphragms and rather heavy voice coils. So the sound wave that the microphone was sampling had to push against quite a bit of dead weight, if you will. Mm-hmm. And the earlier dynamic microphones, the best of them sounded like you were hearing the sound through a thick velvet curtain. And with the worst of them, they had pretty bad colorations. And then when we get to, say, the Shure SM57, that microphone was designed back in the mid-'60s when a lot of churches and schools and other, shall I say, lower-end venues had really horrible PA systems that had speakers that had very poor treble response, and the SM57 had a really pronounced presence peak, so that with speakers with poor treble response and inexperienced sound men could go and put up a few SM57s, and at the very least, the performers could be heard.
Right. So at the time, it solved a problem.
Absolutely.
Right. But we're in a different world now. So what makes this one different? We're calling this the smooth alternative. So I'll let you explain what that means.
Well, the first and foremost with this dynamic microphone, the diaphragm is made of thinner plastic than was common with many older dynamic microphone designs, and the voice coil is lighter on account of it being wound with thinner wire.
Right.
And that combined with very careful and thoughtful design, the transient response is better than many older dynamic microphones, and the frequency response is considerably smoother. With the MAD, the response has a pretty darn smooth response from, say, 100 hertz or so out to about 8 kilohertz, and then it has a broad and relatively shallow peak at around 10 kilohertz, and then beyond 10 it falls off rapidly.
Right.
And like any other cardioid microphone, it has a bit of a bass boost if you're working it really close, basically. The response is basically flat down to around 40 hertz if you're close enough to it to be getting reinforcement from proximity effect. And then at a distance, the response begins to fall at around 70.
Right. So smoother response in the presence band.
Yeah.
And a little more extended, a little more hi-fi in the highs and lows.
Yeah, essentially.
Right. So that's
that. That combined with it seems like they've controlled badly placed resonances better.
Right.
And I can think of a number of dynamic microphones that have very definite colorations at around 500 hertz or so that produce a distinctive boxy effect with the sound, which I've always found to be very objectionable.
Right. Right. So great. So there's lots of dynamic microphones out there. We wanted to build something that was a little more hi-fi, a little smoother, and give you an alternative because you don't need to make a mic that sounds like everybody else's. So this is the MAD. It's coming out. We're going to be introducing it soon at NAMM. And by the time this airs, it'll probably be out there. But we'll be posting lots of samples on vocals and various instruments so you can compare it with the ones that you're used to and have an alternative here. So the MAD, here it is.
Well,
Thanks, David.
you're welcome.